Thank you so much, Senior Advocate, for joining us tonight. And let's get your view. Earlier on, I showed our viewers the information in respect of what the President's directive is on the grazing reserves and the task that is giving the Professor Ibrahim Gambari Committee, the recommendations that have been given, and the terms of reference. Let me get your view on that position of the President. Does it have any kind of meeting point between what the governors are saying, the northern governors, the governors forum, the southern governors? Does this President Grazing Reserve, does it have any relationship? Does it have a handshake with what the governors of the states are saying?
Well, with profound respect, I think the point will have to be made, and I think Dr. Ahmed made that point earlier, that you need a united action. You need a national resolution of this crisis. You need a scientific solution to this problem. You need a modern solution to this problem. As far as the law is concerned, the President cannot, with profound respect, be talking of looking for grazing routes in 2021 Nigeria. The Northern Governors Forum, the Southern Governors Forum, even Miyetti Allah and all other relevant stakeholders have come to the conclusion that open grazing is obsolete and no longer relevant. In this particular instance, apart from the Federal Capital Territory, the land in every state in Nigeria is vested in the governor on behalf of the people. And I think that was the point Dr. Ahmed was making, that the President cannot impose any land policy on the state governor. So you will need, some unity of purpose here. Under the Land Use Act, the President has no control over land outside the Federal Capital Territory. And I think that has to be made very clear. Again, talking about the politics of open grazing, as far back as 2018, the federal government had come up with a policy called National Livestock Transformation Plan, including ranching. Based on that policy, which has been adopted by the entire 36 state governors or governments, I am aware that the Kano state government, which perhaps has the most elaborate policy on this, which is called Ruga Settlement, has begun ranching in that state. I'm also aware Kaduna state has also engaged in ranching. Taraba state has acquired land for ranching and has made an announcement to that effect. Now, on 16th of July this year, the presidency announced that the sum of 6.25 billion naira had been allocated to the Katsina state government for the purpose of ranching. On that occasion, the governor of the state, Aminu Bello Masari, came out to confirm that indeed, as of that time, 5 billion naira had been received by the state, and that in a matter of weeks, ranching will commence in that state. One therefore wonders where the idea of grazing routes or reserves is coming from. So if the state governments have adopted the ranching policy of the federal government and they're already investing in it, and the government has given money to one state, what is required under the Constitution, since there is equality, before the law, the federal government has to make available to each of the state government 6.25 billion naira like has been made available to Katsina State, so that ranching can begin in earnest in the country. And that will solve this problem once and for all. So the government, the federal government, has to go back to its own policy on this matter, which is the National Livestock Transformation Plan. We can't go back to the policy of the 60s.
So you decide
policy that was applicable under the colonial regime.
So, Mr. Falana, you disagree with this concept or the idea, the task given to this committee and the directive given by the president. You disagree with it. You think that is not in consonance with what the governors, the anti-open grazing laws that the governors are putting up in their states.
No, it's not just about disagreement. It is whether the policy is in consonance with the Land Use Act, which is the law that guides land management in Nigeria today. So I'm saying, under that law, the federal government cannot impose any land policy on any state government in Nigeria.
So does it look like an imposition? Because if you look at it, from the terms of reference of that was given to the committee, it includes that they collect data from states. They also case-by-case resolution in partnership with state governments and the SCT and recommend gazetting of ungazetted grazing reserves. You don't think that this is the right thing to do?
No, I thought the president had already given instructions to the attorney general earlier to produce the grazing, gazette. And we did say at that time that there was no time that this policy was of general application in the country. We are now being told that reserves are going to be gazetted. What on earth is going on? And I think the point again is this: whether you are going to consult the state governments or not, we have left this stage of looking for grazing routes. We are now talking about ranching. Governors, state governments are already investing in ranching. The federal government has already given money to Katsina state government. And the same sum of money must be given to every state that is willing to begin ranching. And once we can do that, the reserves that the federal government is looking for will now be incorporated, will be part of the ranching policy.
Of the grazing reserves for you is a no-no and it should be killed. Is that it?
Well, that is what the law is saying. And that is what modern animal husbandry is saying. Open grazing can no longer be allowed in this age and time.
So, I mean, if you look at one of the issues that I took up with Dr. Mohammed is the reaction of the Northern Elders Forum when the governors made an open statement, and the Southern governors made an open statement forcing Asaba. They said, look, they will no longer allow the movement of cattle from the northern part of the country to the southern part of the country. And part of the statement, which the Northern Elders Forum came up with, they said that it's like an ethnic monster to whip up sentiments in the country.
Well, I did say on that occasion, Sheung, that we must stop looking at this problem as a north-south crisis. If the Northern Governors Forum, even before the Asaba meeting, had taken a decision that open grazing is causing problem in the country, that open grazing is obsolete, and that we should move and embrace modern animal husbandry, which ranching is all about. And that has been incorporated in the federal government's National Livestock Transformation Plan. So why are we going back again, causing more problems for the country and causing more problems for the herders?
So this
North-South agenda, that is a national policy on this matter, and that is a policy by the federal government, which is meant to address this problem. So we must go back to the policy of the federal government, which has been adopted by the 36 state governments.
I know that, for example, when the governor of Ondo State came up with the forestry law and this issue of how it's going to ensure that the Amotekun Corps and all those who operate in the forest without permission will be taken out and will not be allowed, so to say. We had that conversation and you were given the position of the law. Dr. Baba Ahmed also raised the issue of ECOWAS protocol, because this time some governors are saying, we do not know who these armed Fulani herders are. How do you handle that? How do you implement the ECOWAS protocol? If some of these elements who are coming to kill innocent Nigerians are non-Nigerians and we cannot identify them, and they come in the shadow of herders to kill people, how then do we handle it?
Sure. Majority of the state government in Nigeria have in place valid and subsisting forestry laws. The Ondo state government has a forestry law under which it is a criminal offense for anybody to commit trespass on the forest reserves of the state government without authorization. And that is the position with many state governments. And what I did say on that occasion was that forest reserves in the country, which are part of the land in every state in Nigeria, are the business of state government. A few weeks later, the federal government announced through the secretary to the government of the federation that state government should control the forest reserves in their state. The federal government had already abandoned its initial policy on that matter, having read the law. With respect to ECOWAS, again, I want to appeal to Nigerians to appreciate that there is no protocol of the ECOWAS that allows illegal movement of persons and goods in the region. What you have in place is the protocol on free movement of persons and goods, of establishment. Articles 3 and 4 of the protocol allow each member state of the ECOWAS to man to guide its borders, so there is no unrestrained influx of foreigners. There's no provision for that. So you cannot enter any member state of the ECOWAS without a passport or laissez-passer. So you must have your traveling document before you are admitted to any country in West Africa. So let nobody give the impression that, because of the ECOWAS protocol on free movement, anybody can just enter Nigeria as of right. No, you must show evidence that you are coming to the country. And if you are bringing animals, articles, of trade, you are bringing animals under the Diseases Act of the government, of the federal government. The animals being brought to the country must be examined to ensure that they are not bringing diseases to the country. That is the law.
But is the law being implemented? Is the law being implemented, Mr. Falana? Which agency of government is supposed to implement this law?
It's our duty to draw the attention of the government to its own duties and responsibilities under the law. But let nobody give the impression that anybody can move cattle from Niger or from Mali or Senegal to Nigeria without examination of the animals and without the production of your traveling document.
I'm asking Mr. Falana, can you tell us which agency of government is supposed to be handling this implementation of this protocol, these laws?
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture is empowered to implement the provisions of the Animal Diseases Act. The Immigration Department The Customs Department are empowered by law to man and ensure that nobody enters Nigeria without a traveling document.
Let's for a moment move into yet another topic of great interest, and it was one that you were deeply involved with in also, is the matter of the allegation of diversion of funds that were recovered. And it was a few days ago that Nigeria's 36 state governments jointly sued the federal government at the Supreme Court over alleged illegal diversion of over 1.8 trillion in recovered loot. They're also alleging diversion by the federal government of 450 billion worth of non-cash assets recovered proceeds of crime since 2015. Mr. Falana, the Attorney General of the Federation has since reacted, and this is the response of the Attorney General to that claim and the allegation. The federal government says through the Attorney General's office, quote, "For the avoidance of doubt and the purpose of setting the record straight, the application of the looted funds can only factor within the context of mutual understanding and negotiations of international and multifaceted jurisdictional and territorial legislative issues. The recovery of stolen assets and the subsequent uses to which these funds may be employed are subject to international agreements between Nigeria and the affected countries, thereby bringing conflict of laws into contemplation. Importantly also, these repatriated funds are based on cooperation and mutual assistance agreement." End of quote. How do you react to the response of the federal government on this?
With profound respect to whoever issued that statement, I'm sure the federal government has not studied the case. This case, by the way, was filed in June this year on the instructions of the Nigerian Governors Forum. And the issue is very narrow, i.e., money recovered from the looted wealth of the country. What should happen to it? And there are two issues here. The recovered loot from abroad is only a part of the entire loot that has been recovered. A lot has been recovered by the EFCC and the ICPC locally. So you can't talk of international agreements when you are talking of money taken diverted from the NNPC or the central bank, money that should have been warehoused in the federation account. If such fund is recovered, it must be paid back into the federation account for distribution by the three tiers of government. So the federal government cannot alone recover this money and pocket it. Secondly, for money recovered abroad, particularly the Abacha loot, which again ought to have been paid to the federation account, it's common knowledge that a former national security advisor, I think Alhaji Grazing, was in charge of removing the money from the central bank, from the foreign reserve account of the federal government. And from those federation accounts, the money was moved to different bank accounts around the world, about 140 banks all over the world. A substantial part of the money has been recovered. Whatever agreements, whatever mutual agreements Nigeria enter, the federal government of Nigeria decided to enter into any agreement with any country. As far as the law is concerned, Section 12 of the Constitution, no treaty, no agreement enter between Nigeria and another country can have a force of law in Nigeria without the National Assembly making a law to that effect, without domestication. But beyond that, you also have Section 162 of the Constitution, which provides that the money belonging to the federation, revenue of the federation, shall be banked, shall be warehoused in the federation account. And once the money is recorded in the federation account, there is a method of distribution in line with the laws of the country. So there is no way the federal government can recover money from abroad and from Nigeria and claim that, oh, this fund is bound and is guided by international agreement. Which agreement? Between who and who? Can you sign an agreement in respect of the fund that should belong to the three tiers of government? And by the way, in 2005, the Olusegun Obasanjo administration yanked $12.4 billion from the federation account to pay the London and Paris clubs, for the indebtedness of Nigeria. But after the payment, the state government and the local government challenged the federal government that this fund does not belong to you alone, and therefore you must refund our own part of the money. And that has been done by the federal government.
Okay.
It is the same policy here.
Yeah.
You can enter into any agreement, but the agreement must be read subject to the Constitution. Very simple and straightforward. And in any case, Seun, this is not a matter for a public debate. There is already a case in court. Instead of issuing a corporate statement, the federal government should join issues with the state government and the local government on who is supposed to be giving what from this money.